All right, everyone. So, one of the people we've all been waiting for the reaction to Bill Belichick being snubbed was Tom Brady. And so we have that. It looks like this is Brock and Salk mornings, 6 to 10, Seattle Sports. Tom Brady reacts. We will react to what he's saying. Here we go.
Tom, how did you react yesterday or this morning when you heard that Bill was not selected to be in the Hall of Fame in his first shot?
You know, it's I just think that to me it's I don't understand it. I mean, I was with them every day. If he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, there's really no coach that should ever be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is completely ridiculous because people deserve it, and he's he, he's incredible. There's no coach I'd ever want to play. I'd rather play for. If I'm picking one coach to go out there to win a Super Bowl, give me one season. I'm taking Bill Belichick. So that's enough said. There's nothing outside of that. You know, again, when it comes down to votes and you know popularity and all that, like then welcome to the world of voting, and you may as well go try out for the Oscars or whatever, and get a big panel to tell you if you're good or not. So it's the way it works, and that's unfortunately, he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. In the end, I'm not worried about that. And a lot of times in life, for all of us, things don't happen exactly how you want them on your timeline, but we'll all be there to celebrate him when it does happen. And he's going to have a huge turnout from so many players, coaches that appreciated everything that he did and the commitment that he made to winning and the impact that he had on all our lives. And that'll be a great celebration when it happens.
So, I want to point out a few things really at the end that Tom Brady says. And the first I want to point out is he is 100% right in the fact that the stuff that really matters at the end of the day is that impact. And Tom Brady has talked about that time and time again, right? Where he was able, Bill Belichick, to get the best out of his players, to get the best out of his teams. And I think that's something that people will forever remember. A lot of people will talk about how he treated the media and things like that, but his players, a lot of them, especially the ones that won with him, right, have a lot of love for him. And you could see that in no bigger proponent of that than Tom Brady, right? The best player he's ever coached has a lot of love for Belichick. With that being said, I want to push back on the thing that he said at the end there where he talks about, well, I have no concern that he's going to get in the Hall of Fame. I don't think anybody has that concern. We know Belichick is going to get into the Hall of Fame. The problem here, in the issue here, is very simple, is that there's a big difference between a first ballot and a second ballot. Like, if this was a guy who was a second ballot Hall of Famer, right? He got in on the second ballot, but he got pushed because of politics to the third. You wouldn't see this kind of reaction. You'd hear a lot of people go, you know what? It's not, you know, it's not what we wanted, but he's going to get in. We're fine. Doesn't really matter. When it's the first ballot, it adds a whole nother thing, right? For here on forever, when Bill Belichick's name is mentioned, it would have been first ballot Hall of Famer Bill Belichick. And I don't think that matters maybe in the short term because we all know how great he is. But 50, 60 years from now, when there's an entire generation of people who had never watched a Belichick game live, he wasn't known in the same way he is now, that's something that will matter. You're going to hear, talking heads in sports media 60, 70 years from now saying, well, you understand that Bill Belichick wasn't even a first ballot Hall of Famer. And look at his record without Tom Brady, right? That's what's going to be talked about. And that's what makes this egregious. And one of the things that makes this disrespectful and just really bad for the sport, because this is where it calls into question everything. And I don't think the short, like I said, short term, maybe not that actually big of a deal because we all live in this environment, right? We all know Bill Belichick. We've all watched his games. We've all, he's still coaching. So it's not as big of a deal now. It becomes a bigger deal for historical purposes because it delegitimizes the entire process. Who else was kept out because of politics, right? We clearly nobody of this caliber, right? This is the greatest coach of all time. But are there people who maybe were borderline Hall of Famers that missed because of politics? Is that something that happened? Were there people that should have been first ballot Hall of Famers, maybe not to the level of Belichick, but should have been, who missed because of politics? That's what this does. It delegitimizes the entire process. Now, I don't think that that's the case in a sense, right? I don't think that there is this. I think Belichick is a unique circumstance because of how dominant he was, the kind of negative attention, right, that the Patriots had. But the problem is that it just creates that overhang, right? It creates that view from a lot of people. And what are you supposed to argue against it? If somebody says, hey, I think this process is kind of rigged, in bias in favor of the voter's perspective and not actually the resume, what's your argument against that now? Well, no, it's not because this and this. Like, did you see Bill Belichick? Like, that's what the voters should be first and foremost looking at. They shouldn't be, like our channel here, where we're kind of deciphering who was really more responsible, Their job is to look at the resume. That's their job. Hall of Fame should be about looking at the resume for the first step. And then, of course, if you have people that are borderline, right? If you have people that are kind of on the line, are they Hall of Famers? Are they not? You can always go into the, context and make your best arguments for it within the voting room and see if they end up being Hall of Famers. That's fine. But for something like this, the resume is just too good. This is the part that frustrates me the most. This is too, this isn't a situation where this is a guy that's like, well, he has a good resume, but was Brady the one who was doing most of it? This guy has the greatest resume of any coach ever. And if he ever comes back into the NFL and he gets the winning record, he will have number one next to his name for every major coaching, thing. He will be number one in everything amongst coaches. That's not a small thing. And so that's the part of this that just drives people nuts and drives me nuts, is the resume should speak for itself on a lot of these guys. The resume should speak for itself. Now, if you get to a borderline guy, now you can kind of go, okay, well, the resume is, let's say Belichick had 2 rings and that's it. 2 rings and 3 Super Bowl appearances. Okay, I think that's still obviously getting him in the Hall of Fame, right? You would think. I don't actually know how many coaches are in there, but you would think that would still get him in the Hall of Fame. But at least then you go, he's, first ballot, it would be a different story. But 6 and 9, and then you add the 2 on top of it for you add the 2 on top of it for the what's it called, for his time with the Giants, right? Actually, let me double check this. Let me make sure that I'm not overstating his resume either, right? We don't want to do that. No, okay. It's 4 as a head coach and 2 as an assistant. But not some lowly assistant, right? A key part of those teams. So 6 and 9. It's shocking. It's shocking. It leaves you stunned that this is something that could possibly happen. And, and by the way, a lot of people like to bring up, well, Belichick hasn't been very good without Tom Brady. And I think that's really misremembering Belichick without Brady. His time with the Browns was not a bad time. Granted, after Brady left the Patriots, okay, things weren't great for them, right? Okay, I get it. But before that, when Belichick was with the Browns, he was not terrible. I understand the records weren't great, but everybody kind of understands that a lot of the team he built, right, that ended up becoming the Ravens. So the Browns became the Ravens, and then obviously the Browns still were the Browns. But a lot of that team went into the Ravens, ended up winning a Super Bowl in 2000. I believe it was it was 2000. And then Belichick is able to do what he did. Like, every year that Brady was on Bill Belichick's team did not mean that Brady was the driving force of the reason they won. Those defenses were the driving force a lot. And I don't think that's a knock on Brady either. A lot of quarterbacks need that. Guess what just happened a couple years ago? Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl, and in that Super Bowl, they were down 10-0 at half. Patrick Mahomes comes out and throws an interception, and they find a way to win that game. Why? The defense. Defense made some big plays in that game. Does that mean that Patrick Mahomes isn't a great quarterback? Of course not. We've seen him be the quarterback for some of the best offenses of all time, right? Some of the best offenses of all time. It's just pointing out that it's a team game, and sometimes, you're not going to be the driving force. Doesn't mean that Brady didn't make key plays here or key plays there. It's just pointing out that defense matters, right? Team matters. Coaching in the NFL matters. So that's it for us. I'm not sure, how the NFL fixes this, and I think that's the worst part because the Hall of Fame is just such a, the people you feel bad for, not just Bill Belichick, obviously he's number one, but it's for all these other Hall of Famers. I mean, think about in your life, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, think about in your life, you work so hard at something, and everybody coming into the league, a lot of people probably, you're so nervous, and you put in all this work and this effort, and then when you retire, you have this moment of, oh my God, I'm going to be in a Hall of Famer. A Hall of Famer. That means I am in elite company. And from now until the end of time, when people say, who was in the NFL Hall of Fame, my name will be there. Think about that moment. And then think about, because some people feel a certain way, not football wise, but personally, right? Because the football arguments make no sense here. And by the way, they're not even trying to make the argument publicly. And now, because of that, they delegitimize everything about that process, even if it's not necessarily should be this way because of that. You feel bad for them too. So, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.